So my name is Gary McLean. I'm a past president of the Academy of AHRD. I'm a retired professor from the University of Minnesota. From there I taught at Texas A&M, and from there I went to the International Islamic University of Malaysia. I also am the president of a family consulting business, McLean Global Consulting.
Good. So what do you love about AHRD?
The Academy for me has been both a personal and a professional home. I lost my wife just 3 weeks ago, and this has been a wonderful place to be because this is my second family. And there's a community here, there's caring, there's opportunity to interact with other people, and the academic challenges here are also amazing. Opportunities to work with people, collaborate, do research, write books as I have with you, Dr. Cho. All of that has been just wonderful.
Great. So how has the field of HRD changed over the course of your career?
Well, you're pushing me back a lot of years to talk about that. I remember creating my first training program, and that was done on a typewriter. We would paste in pictures and then run to Kinko's to take copies. That's definitely not the way we do HRD today. Over the years, I have developed expertise in the organization development area. So while I started out in a training focus, I have evolved into more of an organization development perspective. One of the things I've seen out in business as I've worked there is that HRD is becoming less identifiable as a separate field or separate function in the organization, but it has become much more integrated into the organization. So we're seeing supervisors and managers who are now being increasingly expected to do the kinds of things that we teach in HRD. For someone my age, it's also obvious that another major change has been technology. We use technology today with Twitter and iPhones and all of these sources of knowledge and information in ways that we didn't even dream of when I started in the field. That's been a major change. And the globalization has been a change. When I started, you didn't talk a lot about global HRD. And today, you can't talk about HRD without talking about the global implications of the field.
Okay. So what is the future of HRD?
Well, you know that's a tricky question. I have been asked, for example, by some of the countries I've been working with, how can we predict the demand for workers? What occupations are going to be out there? And it's an unanswerable question because nobody can see the future. As I look at the future, if I assume a continuing trend, there are two major trends that I see as problematic for the field of human resource development. The first is the change in demographics. Many countries, especially Asian countries, but also some European countries and even the US to some extent, looking at decreasing populations. Where are we going to get the resources to do the work that is needed? I think that's a huge challenge for countries, companies, and certainly for HRD. The second piece has to do with technology. We had an interesting conversation at lunch today about the impact of AI on HRD. And I take a little more cynical view of that. I think we undersell what technology is going to be able to do for us in the future. And I look specifically at the self-learning, self-developing robot era that we've moved into. Even when my iPhone, Siri can learn just by the way in which I interact with the voice, the phone, is a major challenge for us. I think that we're going to have a struggle with this, particularly those people who are not educated, who are not literate, and I'm looking around the world here, people who are not well educated, who don't necessarily have creativity skills or intellectual skills, I don't know what their future is going to be. And I think that's a huge, huge issue for HRD. I'm going to throw a third one in here. We have not been as responsive as a field to what I think are the societal and community challenges that HRD should be working on. It is absolutely intolerable to me that we still have human trafficking. It is frustrating and makes me angry to think about how we continue to treat women around the world. And this relates to our project on Asian women in leadership, but there's so many pieces in which we have not learned how to deal with each other respectfully, equally, with equity between our genders. And we've got to do that. And HRD has a major role in that.
Right. So you saw these brand new students and scholars coming to this conference. So what would your advice be? What would you say?
So it's an interesting question because we had a piece of that in our last session. And one of the things that I see as I've worked with new students or new people coming into the academy, they want to know, what is HRD? What do we do? What should I be expecting on the other end? And there are two pieces that I typically give to those students. The first is, we don't live in a world without ambiguity. You are not going to get a clean-cut answer to your questions. You're going to have to keep struggling, and the struggling is where you grow. Don't look for an answer. We don't have the answer. We'll help you explore. We'll have dialogue. We'll have conversation. But there is no answer at the end of the line. And the second piece of advice I give is I see a lot of students come in with perfectionist views of the world, particularly doctoral students who are looking at doing a dissertation. And I keep saying there's no such thing as a perfect dissertation. There's no such thing as a perfect advisor. There's no such thing as a perfect research. Those things just don't happen. Give up your perfectionism. Keep exploring. Look at what the future has for you and go with it. But don't hold yourself back because you feel like you don't yet have the perfect answer.
So I have one more question to you because you are Gary. Okay. So what is your next plan?
In HRD?
No, personally, professionally.
Well, so part of what I'm doing is I'm moving back to Minnesota, and people say, why on earth would you leave Florida to go back to the Minnesota winter? And the answer is simple. It's because that's where my friends are, that's where my family is, it's where I have my roots, it's a place I love. I'm moving into a seniors living facility because the programming is so exciting to me. And I have always been a learner. I expect to continue to be a lifelong learner. And so I'm continuing that. I just went back last week to seminary to take some refresher courses. And people kept saying, why are you doing that? Because I want to learn. So I'm continuing to do that. And I leave next week to go to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Hanoi, and Vietnam. And that last one is very interesting to me because I grew up in the era of the Vietnamese War. And here I am going to Vietnam to help develop the country. Well, isn't that wonderful? That's what HRD can do. So personally, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to keep teaching. I'm going to keep traveling. I'm going to keep doing research. I'm going to get our book series finished. I never have a shortage of things to do. And I love collaborating. I love writing. I'm going home from this conference with 12 new projects. Life will keep being wonderful.